Welcome into the install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. We have been on the road for almost 10 days here for the Titans and joint training camp practices. Greg, 3 joint camps against Tampa, 1 against Tampa, 2 against Atlanta. A lot of good work, a lot of great opportunities for a young team, at least on the Tennessee side of things, especially for young quarterback Cam Ward, who we're going to talk about in detail today. Just seeing a bunch of different looks and having a problem solve in real time. It's been, it's exhausting on them. It's exhausting on everybody involved who's in the process of picking up an NFL franchise and taking it on the road for 10 days. But I really think they're gaining some good value here.
You just said something that's really interesting that I've actually heard coaches talk about over the years, as I've talked to a lot of offensive coaches and talk about young quarterbacks. And I think one of the things that you really want to find out with young quarterbacks, that's part of the process, and this is something that takes time, is you want to find out what problems they can solve while they're on the field. Because you can call plays, and obviously built into calling plays is the sense that, hey, we understand ideally what the defense, based on probability and tendency, is going to be in, but that doesn't happen 100% of the time. So you need to find out what problems your quarterback can solve within the context of a game, how he can find the answers to the test while the game is being played. Because while you can call a play, and obviously coaches believe based on study that they're going to call a good play, still, there are times in a game where the quarterback has to find the answers to the test that go beyond the play call. And that's one of the things you're trying to find out as you go through the process. And that's something that does indeed take time, because you have to learn how your quarterback sees the game and how you can work with him in the way he sees the game. So that's part of the process. I'm not sure fans think about that a lot, but coaches do. What problems can my quarterback solve that go beyond the play call?
No, and it's much more visceral for fans, right? And you don't blame them for that, because they see what they see and they apply
Right.
it through whatever prism they're viewing it at that particular time. And maybe, when they see that Cam Ward throws an interception against the Falcons in joint camp or something like that, they don't take into account that the coaches are actively trying to make this in practice as difficult as humanly possible, so that when they get to the game,
right,
it's far more routine. And it's 14 snaps in a preseason game for Cam that we're getting ready to talk about versus a couple thousand of them that he's had so far in camp. But you can almost see some of that, even though it's such a small sample size, that it may look a lot different in practice or a lot harder in practice, or it may seem like he's struggling way more. And then he gets into a situation in the game where he problem solves and he works his way through it, even though that's not heavily scheme type stuff on either side yet.
And that's the thing about preseason that you don't get. And obviously you wouldn't get it even if he played more snaps, because the opposing defense in a preseason game is not specifically game planning and working through a game. The thing you don't get in preseason is working through the game, seeing what the defense is doing, having both the coaches and the quarterback then be able to respond throughout. I mean, a lot of coaches, what they do is first series, second series, they put out different formations, different personnel packages, different shifts, different motions, because they want to see how the defense reacts, and then they bank it. And maybe they come back in the third quarter knowing how the defense has responded to a particular personnel package, formation, shift, motion. That's what you don't get in preseason. And that's something that you're going to start week 1 in a difficult situation on the road in Denver against a really good defense that led the NFL in quarterback sacks a year ago, and Vance Joseph being a guy who's very good with pressure concepts. So that's what you don't get in the preseason. But that's part of the learning process, how both the offensive staff works through a game and how your young quarterback works through a game based on what he sees with each play, with each series.
Yeah, and you take each day or each opportunity as it comes, and that's what these preseason or these joint camp practices are leading into preseason games. The next one for the Titans will be, as we take this on a Thursday morning, tomorrow here in Atlanta. So they have played one preseason game, Greg, and they gave the offensive starters 2 series, one a 3 and out, the other an 11-play touchdown drive. But I want to start with the 3 and out, the first series, the only offensive snaps that they got in the first quarter of that game, because Tampa's twos were at least more effective in running the ball and bleeding clock that way. The 3rd and 5 in particular. So they get a Tony
Yep.
Pollard run for 5 yards. They have an incompletion of Van Jefferson, and then Cam Ward is incomplete on 3rd and 5, rolling out of the pocket to his right, if I remember correctly. And
That's
I
correct.
wondered what you saw, understanding that we don't know what specifically he's supposed to be reading on that play. I wonder what you saw from him, just specifically
Well,
based on what you saw on the field.
my sense is I don't know 100%, but I think I know what he's supposed to be reading. It was a 3-by-1 set with trips to his left. And I think personally, based on the fact that I've seen that route combination to trips many times, I think the throw was supposed to be to Lockett on the sit route at the sticks. But there was a classic case on 3rd and 5, and this is a learning play where I believe Ward went through his read way too fast and left the pocket unnecessarily. I think he needed to stay there and he needed to make the throw to Lockett on the sit route at the sticks. Because what they did is they ran Ridley on a shallow cross, and it opened up the throw to Lockett. It was a clean throw, and Cam just went through his read too fast and left the pocket when he did not need to. Ultimately, he ended up throwing it away, and they punted. That's what I believe happened on that play.
And he spoke to that after the game specifically, and they're looking at pictures as opposed to plays on the Surface tablets that they have on the sideline there, and they were able to identify that pretty quickly. And we'll get to the following drive here in just a second. But Greg, when he flushes from the pocket like that, and it just so happens that I was watching ESPNU last night, and the replay of Louisville or Miami at Louisville was on, which was an incredibly fun game. I'm sure you did the tape on those
I
because
did.
both
That was
Shuck
that high scoring game. It wasn't like 52-45, something like that.
insanity, absolutely
Yeah. I
insanity.
watched
But
actually both sides of the I watched both sides of the ball because I did Cam and I did Tyler Shuck. So I mean I didn't do it recently, but I did that game.
sure, but I just a point that the analyst, and I believe it was Jordan Rogers, but I'm not entirely sure, brought up when Cam flushes from the pocket when he's trying to extend the plays, and I'm sure you've talked about this before, whether it's here or elsewhere, what that does to the receiver, where the receiver doesn't necessarily know where he's going to be
Right,
when he's
right,
trying to extend the play, and what kind of chaos probably seems like too strong a word, but what kind of disruption that can cause as
right.
far as trying to make it happen, even though the quarterback is just trying to make something happen down the field.
Yeah, and I think that's another element that takes time where the receivers they'll work together and get a better feel. It's like with Patrick Mahomes, and I'm not making a direct comparison, so I hope people understand that. But what happens is with quarterbacks that do move, and Cam will be a guy that moves on occasion, and he'll move unnecessarily, just as he did on that play. And then the receivers will develop an understanding of what they should be doing because that can be coached as well. You know, sometimes when you see a quarterback move, it seems like it's random, and it is to a certain extent, but also then receivers have a sense of how he moves and how they can work together with him. But on that particular play, he left the pocket too soon. There was no reason for him to leave the pocket. He should have been able to stand there and hit Lockett on the sit route, and it should have been a first down. Let's move the sticks.
Yeah. So we go to the next drive, and that one obviously is the only points that the Titans were able to put up on the night. But you see a couple of things that are promising, not the least of which, Greg, and I know we didn't have this necessarily written down, but the protection, it's encouraging right now for Cam Ward, even though I understand that it's much more vanilla as far as what the fronts are presenting these offensive linemen at this point in
Sure.
time. It's been so long since I've seen a Titans quarterback have any kind of a clean pocket preseason or
Well, you
otherwise.
just want to see good execution. I mean, that's what coaches are looking for. I mean, they started the series with the Ridley 27-yarder, which was a deep drop because they were deep routes. They were vertical routes. There were two vertical routes, on the left side and one on the right side. And Ridley ran, a kind of deep intermediate type route. And Cam had all day to throw, and then he drove the ball right to Ridley, who was wide open. I mean, that's what you wanted to see. He was clean in the pocket. Latham had a really strong anchor on that play, the right tackle. Like you said, that's not something I guess we've seen a lot of. So what you're looking for there is execution. That's all you're looking for. I mean, you know, we can always say that, gee, it's not a regular season game, and it's not. So you don't want to necessarily sit here and say that means the O line's great, no problem. But, you want to see quality, solid execution.
And that drive, also included a play that Cam Ward got away with, where 32, I can't remember the name of the Bucks defensive back, but he had
Yeah,
two hands on an interceptable pass.
and I'll tell you what I think I saw on the play, and I don't know, what Nick Holtz would say or Bo Hardigree. To me, and I could be 1,000% wrong because you never know. But what the Bucks on that particular play, it was 2nd and 9. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what they did is they showed disguise and late coverage rotation. Which is something he's going to get in the regular season. It's going to happen week 1, by the way. I thought that he read it properly, and I'll tell you why. Because what they did is they did on the left side of the field, which I believe was the short side. I can't remember exactly. I think it was the boundary side. They did late rotation to cover 2, and I think Ward saw that, and I think he said, "Okay, in cover 2, the outside void is going to be open." But what happened was the corner got really good depth. The corner sunk because there was no one in the flat to hold him down. Because don't forget, corners in cover 2 are flat players, but there was no one in the flat to that side of the field to hold him down. So he got more depth and was able to sink deeper than normally corners do in cover 2. So I think Cam read it as cover 2, thought the corner would sit, and was throwing to the whole shot, as we say in cover 2. But the corner got excellent depth, and obviously it was lucky it was not intercepted, and it looked bad. My sense was Ward made the right read. Now, maybe Nick Holtz, if he's listening, which he's not, obviously, and I didn't reach out to him, but I did not think he made the wrong read. But that's, like I said, I could be wrong.
I, I You could be, Greg, but I think that would probably align. And again, they only share so much with us because they shouldn't share everything with us.
Of
But
course.
I think that they were pretty comfortable with the play that he made. It was just a nice, as you pointed out, a situation that was advantageous for the defensive back based on what the quarterback was seeing.
Because as soon as the ball was snapped, the safety to that side immediately retreated, like got great depth. And Cam was looking right at him. And I think as soon as he saw the safety get that kind of depth, he knew that the safety was a cover 2 safety. And therefore, if he's a cover 2 safety, the corner's a cover 2 corner, and the whole shot's going to be there. And I think that's what clicked in his mind. So even though it looked bad, and I'm sure fans watching thought, "Oh my God, what a horrible throw," and he's lucky it wasn't intercepted, obviously. But I don't think he made the wrong read. I think the corner just got far more depth than Cam assumed he would get based on the fact that it was cover 2.
As the cliche goes, the defense is allowed to make plays too in those circumstances. So, 14 offensive snaps. We'll see how much he gets. They're planning on 2 series in
Right.
Atlanta here in the next couple of weeks. Maybe a few more plays, maybe a few less plays, depending on how those series go. And we'll certainly talk about that next week. The next thing that I have written down here, Greg, and I know you wanted to talk about, is the linebacker competition because
Yeah.
they're at least as a coaching staff, Frank Bush has talked a great deal about Cedric Gray and James Williams, or James Williams and Cedric Gray, as still competing for that role. Now they tell on themselves a little bit in practice, Greg, given how much more volume James Williams gets with Cody Barton, for example, who's going to be the starting off-ball linebacker, with whomever they end up going with. But I think that is trending in that direction. I know you watched both of those players, and I wonder what your takeaways were.
Yeah, I think that look, they both had good plays and some bad plays. I mean, the key thing is key and diagnose in the run game, which is the first thing you're looking for a stack backer. How does he react to what he sees? How does he read his keys? Is he triggering properly? And is he triggering at the right time? You don't want to be a beat late. Are you playing with gap discipline? In other words, if the play goes away from you, and you're on the back side of it as a stack backer, are you staying and playing with discipline because you're the cutback player on the back side? It's just human nature to try to run over and make a play, and then you lose your cutback responsibility. Right now, it's clear that Williams is ahead of Gray. I think Williams, because he's not used to playing at the second level like that, there are times I think he has to play with more downhill aggression in the run game. I thought there were some run plays in which he did not react to his gap responsibility off the snap and was late to trigger. Gray, to me, his game is playing in the box. He's a box defender. He's not a guy that's going to run sideline to sideline with great speed. He's much more of a stacked linebacker than an inside out, sideline to sideline play speed guy. I think he's at his best working in the confines of the box, navigating through traffic to make plays in the run game. I think ultimately, if Williams can really master playing in the box and really playing with good key and diagnose, I think he probably gives you a little more athletically. But now you're getting into the specifics of key and diagnose, triggering right, playing the run. And I'm sure they see that, which is why I think Williams right now is ahead of him.
Yeah, and that seems to be the approach that they've taken pretty consistently throughout the course of the offseason program, and now since we've been in training camp and actual preseason games. There's obviously a ton of guys earning jobs or trying to earn jobs out there, Greg, and or at least put tape out there for other teams to give them opportunities. And I wonder if there was one player in particular that caught your attention based on you watching the Titans preseason game against Tampa and maybe noticing a player that you didn't intend to necessarily scout that way.
Yeah, the guy I really noticed on defense was Cam Horsley, who's a free agent. I thought he was a draftable player. I did his tape coming out of Boston College. He's actually from the next town over in South Jersey. And I talked to him when I was at camp, and I'd forgotten where he was from. And I said, "Hey, where are you from?" And he said, "Cinnaminson, New Jersey," which is the next town over from where I am in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, NFL Films. So we were, talking about that. But I thought he had some really strong run game snaps in which he showed what I call short stroke knockback power. I mean, he was just knocking back the offensive center and the offensive guard. Now, we can sit here and say they're not starters, but that's not the point. This is who he's playing against. So you got to go out and play. I mean, you don't say, okay, I'm not going to play because they're not starters. I mean, he's going out to try to earn a job, as a backup D tackle. And he's more of a run player than a pass rusher. But you always want rotational players. Simmons and Sweat are not going to play 75 snaps a game. So, you're looking for the backup D tackles that you can line up rotationally. And I thought he had a number of snaps where he just showed that knockback power in the run game and made plays in the run game. And again, I wasn't looking for him, Buck, but you make the point, you watch tape and guys jump out. And I thought he jumped out. Now, I don't know how he's doing on a day-to-day basis in camp, but in the game, he showed up.
Well, and it's funny because I was actually talking to Mike Borgonzi about this on the sideline before the game took place, and he's like, "Well, you study guys at practice every day. You study guys around the league. You try to know the league as much as humanly possible, but you never know which one of the guys that you may not necessarily be high on in practice comes into a game and turns it on the way that some players are wont to do, and that's not specific to Cam Horsley. I just mean generally." Where personnel evaluators are going through their own rosters or rosters around the league and being like, I don't know what this guy's doing in practice that's different, but in the game, he certainly pops.
And the other thing, too, is when you sign free agents, and again, there's guys who are viewed as priority free agents that you really want to sign. I don't know if Cam Horsley was that guy. I think he would have been because I thought he was a draftable player, as I said. But someone in the personnel department, maybe more than one person, liked Cam Horsley and thought he could play in the league. And that's why they signed him. So, again, we don't know if he'll make the team or not. You start getting into the undrafted players and you don't know. And the other guy, just to mention, because I'm sure people are talking about him, was Oladejo. And I thought Oladejo had some really good run game snaps. Now, obviously, he was probably drafted more to be a pass rusher, and they hope that that's what will happen. But I thought that he showed well in the run game, and we'll see. He's probably going to get. I think he played 20 snaps. I don't know what they plan on him for this week. My guess is he might get more than 20. He probably won't get 50, but I would think they'd like to see him rush the quarterback a little more. And see how that goes. But I thought he had some fairly strong run game snaps, playing off blocks effectively, both from the backside where he had to work through traffic and the play side, where the play was to his side of where he lined up. So we'll see. But he played, early on. He essentially played with the first team. So we'll see if he gets more snaps this week against Atlanta.
My sense in talking to the coaching staff, Greg, is that you're accurate with that. I think they'd like to see him, and specifically in more third down situations, because
Yeah.
of more opportunities for him to try and continue to refine the thing that that or you've heard before. The more time you spend talking to personnel people in the league and stuff like that, is who, when they put them in actual game action, can maintain their technique versus defaulting to, okay, I just need to figure out how to win, and I'm going to rely on my physical tools and traits, the things that got a lot of these guys up into a point where they're obviously physically talented athletes, but you still need to be able to maintain that technique and apply it to game situations. I think they're looking for that from Femi and a lot of young guys, not specifically to Femi.
Yeah. Right. And there's no question, because I remember one pass rush where he tried to rip move and it initially worked and then he got stopped. So he's there. I'm sure they work with him on technique, and then he has to figure out too what technique works best for him, what he's most comfortable with, how he feels he can win. And don't forget, at this point in time, you're not studying the offensive tackle you're playing against. Once you get to the regular season, you'll be studying, and that's the coach's job too. They study, that's what the O-line coach does. And that's what, they have two O-line coaches, and they probably have a quality control guy who's doing the same thing as well. So you're getting a bunch of people who present to the pass rushers, hey, you're playing Garrett Bowles, or I forget who the right tackle's McGlinchey for Denver. So you're presenting to them their strengths and weaknesses, how you can attack them, with your technique. So, again, this is all a process. You can't look at 2 or 3 pass rushes in the preseason and decide, oh, this guy can't rush the quarterback, which, you know how that goes. That's not really a relevant thing to say.
Oh, it does seem like we say some version of the same thing each and every year, but it's a good reminder for folks as they consume this stuff, the proper prism, or as much of the proper prism as they should try and view it through, how football people who are evaluating these guys are viewing it versus how their initial reactions might be on social media or otherwise.
No question. But I'm looking forward to seeing the second game. Like you said, I guess it will depend on how the offense does as to whether, look, if they go down with an 11-play touchdown drive on the first drive, they might say that's it for Cam. If they're struggling, he may get a third series. You never know. I mean, the one thing you'd like to see is success, just so they feel good. It's not a matter of whether they're unbelievable plays or not. Although I thought Cam, after that, was it a penalty? Didn't they have 1st and 20 at one point on that second? And then he hit.
So
then
it was
he hit
the
Ridley.
27-yarder to Ridley, and then Ridley was called for OPI, which set them back at
Correct.
1st and 20.
And then so it was 1st and 20, and then he hit Ridley versus man, and he hit Ridley versus zone. And I thought even after the near interception, he came back and his eyes were in exactly the right place on 3rd and 9, and he hit Chig, on the sit route, and his eyes were in exactly the right place. He knew what defender could be an issue on that play, and he hit Chig. See, those are little plays that don't seem like they mean much, but they mean a lot.
Oh, certainly, you'll take any little bit of progress en route.
And then they were in mesh, which I know they worked on 1,000 times in practice because I was there. They got Lockett on the mesh route, the mesh concept down to the 2-yard line, and then they ended up scoring the touchdown. So, the second drive had some really nice execution.
Yeah, and execution is as much about what the preseason is about.
That's what it's about.
As anything else. Well, we'll look forward to recapping what we see out of the Falcons game coming up, Greg, and always appreciate your time. Enjoy as much of the preseason football as you're willing to put yourself through, and certainly, I'm just happy to be doing games again, Greg. That's what it's about to me. I start to moan and groan about halfway through the third quarter, like anybody else does, but it just feels so good to be back in a press box covering games.
No, it's good. So we'll see. I assume if they do well, I would guess that Cam would not play in the third preseason game if there's good success in this game. But And then they'll start. Then it's on to Denver. To paraphrase Bill Belichick, then it's on to Denver.
It's certainly not that far away, and so the
No,
urgency of that becomes greater and greater with each passing day. Look forward to doing it again next week, buddy, and I'll talk to you again soon.
thanks, Buck. Appreciate it.